right. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm Ron Hanks, and I'm going to be your moderator tonight for a little short Q&A with our filmmakers. So without further ado, let's bring them on. Please give them a big round of applause from Bolero, writer and director Sarah Gross. Woo! From Grit, Eileen Abarrca, writer, co-director, and star. From Made Public, Foster Wilson, the director. And from When Kids Grow Up, Marissa Labog, oh my gosh, writer, producer, and star. Absolutely awesome. What we'd love to do now is have you each go down the row and then introduce anyone that's here with cast and crew from each one of your films. So why don't we start with Bolero?
Can you guys stand up?
Yeah,
Whoever
if there's anyone here from Bolero,
film, just stand up.
And let's give them a round of applause.
All right. So,
beautiful.
Wait, Rhett, stay standing. Rhett. So all the way in the back, we have Rhett Swanson, who played our rebel informant.
Wow.
We have our lead, Larson Thompson, right over there. We have Jonathan Medina, who played Reader 8. Paul Vogel, our sound designer, sound editor, sound mixer, sound recordist. He did it all. Brian Tang, our cinematographer, and Ryan Wagner, our AD. And of course, last but not least, our fabulous producer, Annika Dawson.
All right. Congrats, guys. All right, from Grit.
Hi. Well, we don't quite have the entourage today, but Jordan Otten is here, who's so awesome. She's a producer and co-director of Grit. So.
For Made Public, I think there's quite a few cast here at the very least. Lola, I know our producer's here. If you're in the cast, stand up, or crew, please stand up. Woo. Yeah, look at all those people. They're all here. There's a lot of people.
Fortunately and unfortunately, I guess, my cast and crew are all working. So, woo, go Hollywood. I do have my executive producer, however, Emily Wasserski.
Oh, perfect. Well, what I'd like to do is actually go down the row again, and let's talk about sort of the inspiration for the films and like how they came to be. And let's start with you.
Okie dokie.
Bolero.
Sure. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi, and I like immersive world building. I like dark universes, and I wanted to find a wonderful female character who was not the good girl or the helpmate, but someone who can be as, pragmatically selfish and potentially evil as the men we get to regularly see on the screen, and someone who kicks a little ass. So that was the goal. Yeah, and so we were thinking a lot about telepathy and music, and we came to find this story with me and Quinn Armstrong, who is another student at USC and who came up with the concept of telepaths as secret police.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, tell us about Grit.
The inspiration for Grit came through my own fertility struggles. I like the character Frankie was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, so I was having a really hard time making a baby. And so I was just channeling all my frustration into this story, and it was very helpful. If anyone has gone through that, it really does take grit to fucking get through it. And so that's what the title comes from. It's like just the perseverance and finding your own way. I did not find the way that Frankie found. I found my own way, but I wanted to create a character who took ownership of her own choices, her own body, her own future, and just decided that she's going to make it happen one way or another. So, yeah.
Foster?
So my husband, Brian Leahy, wrote the film, and he was going to be here tonight, but, we have 2 small children and things happen. So if you're a parent in the industry, you might know how those things go. And so he wrote the film. We grew up in the Facebook era. Facebook was invented when we were sophomores in college. And we watched it grow from, this is what I have for breakfast this morning to like, hey, big life choice. Anyone want to weigh in? And that's kind of where it came out of, that whole thing. And we were fascinated by that and how social media is sort of influencing our everyday decisions. And here we are. And we like comedy.
Marissa?
Well, I am obviously very interested in like the pathology of violence and kind of what makes a monster. So there was a great story on This American Life about this woman named Gloria who just walked onto buses and shot bus drivers. And during this time period in this particular city, apparently bus drivers specific ones, were taking lone women on their buses and raping and killing them, and nobody was doing anything about it. So this was her solution. And there was controversy, obviously, whether she was a monster or was actually a savior. So this is something that I was just really interested in, and very much like Sarah, just kind of also wanting to present that kind of role for a female and seeing like what that does as well. So yeah, that's what happened.
That's awesome. You're a badass doing those stunts too. Oh my gosh. All of you are. I mean, so tell us, why did you, we were talking a little bit backstage about this, about why did you choose a short film as your platform? I mean, or were these proof of concepts for something longer, or did you think you could tell the story specifically in a 15-minute format and so just punch it in there and do great? Why did you choose short films?
For me, it was twofold. I was a USC student at the time, and this was my thesis film, but it was also a proof of concept for a larger feature, and I thought that would be a really successful way to show people that I can shoot action, I can shoot sci-fi. This is how I would do it. These are the kinds of ideas I would explore in a larger version. So it was a really good tool for me, and we're actually going to make the feature now. So I'm really
that's
excited.
Awesome. Congrats. Very cool.
I always saw Grit as a proof of concept for a series. So I always I was very inspired by Pamela Adlon's Better Things. And I wanted like a day in the life of this woman who was like not the obvious mother and not the obvious trajectory to become a mother. And I always saw beyond just the trying to get pregnant, what it would be like to observe her in pregnancy, in motherhood, and like being in the weird mommy groups and not fitting in and all that. So it is a proof of concept for a series that we're developing. So yeah, yeah.
For Made Public, it's not a proof of concept for anything greater. This story existed in this 14-minute time frame. And I love the short film format. I think it's a wonderful way to make a movie, especially on a budget. And it's very hard to get a feature off the ground or a series picked up. So this is my film school, making short films, and I believe in it as a medium, as a storytelling medium, in the whatever length it is, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. I have a bunch of short films in various lengths, and I think that they can exist on their own as well. So that's what we did.
Awesome.
Yeah, mine is also a proof of concept. There's so much more that I want to explore, obviously, with Mackenzie, the main character. There's a lot there. So it is part of a series, and I'm hoping to, I am writing currently the series, and I'm hoping that will take off. So.
Well, let's talk about, absolutely. Let's talk about women in film, because it is awesome to have 4 ladies up here. I've been on the stage where it was 11 dudes and no women. So this is, I think, incredible that you're all up here. And I just wanted to go down the list, go down the row again, and let's talk about what being a woman in filmmaking today means for you. And yeah, like,
Do I have to go first?
you don't have to go first. No, like if anyone's inspired to go first, let's do that. Is that too broad?
Well, I'm a filmmaker and a director who happens to be a woman. So it is a topic, it is a conversation, because the truth is, and the fact is, that women are 50-50 in film school, but they're not making it out of the gates and making their movies and getting hired. So the conversation for me as a director and as a producer is more, how can I get more women on my team? How can I bring up other women? Because if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? And if I'm not going to set the bar, who is? I gotta do it myself. So I'm also really invested in hiring women on my crew. We had I think we had close to 80% female crew on Made Public, and a really big crew at that. And our conversations were, hire a woman, and if you can't find one, come and talk to me for the position. So, because then what's the problem? Are we just not doing enough outreach? And so there's the beginning of the conversation.
And and Eileen, you said you have an all-female crew for yours?
Did, yeah. We had an all-female production crew, and then in post we did have a wonderful composer who is a man, still is a man, was a man and is a man. But during the production, everybody on set, minus a couple of the actors who, were in my bed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Those were the only actors.
On screen, yeah.
On screen, obviously. But it was just, that's actually a couple funny moments that we had there, We're like, this feels strangely opposite of what we're used to, right? So it's like this all-female crew. It was very supportive. And, I was really lucky to have Jordan because she went to UCLA, had these amazing female relationships in production that she brought on. And I thought it was, it's like the beauty of being able to create your own projects is that you can set the bar. So if you wanted to hire all women, you can. And we did, and it was an awesome experience.
And I think what we were talking about backstage also is that how it works in the industry, and if you work on shows and you see people who've been in the industry 20, 30, 40 years, is you hire who you know because that's who you trust. And so because it's been a male-dominated world for so long, you just see lots of men. And I am trying, and I think many of us are trying to make it so that we all know more women in the industry. Because then if you know them, then you hire them. I happen to work with a female DP on my last 5 projects because she's who I know, and she's who I trust, and she's who I collaborate with. So it's just kind of change. We try to change those numbers so that we all know all genders in all positions, and then you can hire the best people.
That's awesome. That deserves a round of applause. Honestly, I think that's great. Did you want to? Yeah, you were.
I wasn't going to add much. They said it really well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought they said it well. Yeah.
Well, then,
or I could say
Marissa,
more.
Did you want to add something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I absolutely fully agree with what's being said up here. I think also just in terms of the content too. I think that for me, I'm not intentionally trying to be like, I want this to make this a female film, but being a female, it naturally is from experiences that I am part of or that I see in the world that I want to address. So just by nature, I think that that's what's great about starting things like this and creating our own work is now you get a female perspective out there, and just naturally with that, I feel like it brings more females into your sphere, basically, and allows us all to kind of communicate together and touch on topics that maybe aren't really touched upon as much anymore. So.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about content creation. I mean, for many of you guys wear multiple hats on the project, and we're developing it, writing it, directing it, and starring in it. This is a room full of a lot of people that are actors, but also are content creators as well. Tell us a little bit about your journey from that as well, personally, and then maybe we can leave with some inspiration for everybody too.
In terms of how we developed the ideas, or
maybe you in general, like what made you want to be a filmmaker in general?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My mom's a big cinephile. I was always her movie date growing up, and I was a very pragmatic child and didn't go to undergrad for film because I was like, I'm never going to make movies. It's not possible. But then I just kept coming back to it. And I produced a couple of shorts when I was in undergrad and caught the bug. And I PA'd a lot on big sets in New York. And I became an AC. I was very interested in learning the language of camera. And then I made a short, got into USC, and I've been there for the last 3 years and just graduated. Bolero was my thesis film. And I want to develop more in science fiction and action and all sorts, actually. A lot of female-centric content, hopefully, because I'm big on gals, I guess. Yeah.
I'm primarily an actor, and I had produced and directed a feature documentary, very different. It was a political documentary that I did a few years ago, and that just gave me the confidence, even though I didn't know what I was doing going into it. I learned so much, and I just thought, well, hey, this is a story that I have to tell, only I can tell it this way. Why couldn't I tell more stories? And so, again, going back to, the nucleus of the story was very personal to me, and I thought, well, that was so gratifying. Why don't I pour all this energy and creative energy into this? So that was like, how I absolutely want to continue to create work and that I'm in and that I'm not in. I love to share the stories and the experience. Everybody has a very singular experience, and sometimes you think, oh, everyone's doing it. You have a very specific voice, and you have something to offer. So everyone here's got a story.
Yeah, I've been an actor my whole life, and after working out here for a while, like 7-8 years of moving from New York, I was part of a reading series, and we were reading short films, and I found this script that I was like, this is a wonderful script. Who's gonna somebody make this? And everyone just kept looking at me and be like, well, you direct it. I was like, no, but someone make this. And so then I did. And that was my very first film, and it was one day shoot, $500, like go out and just kind of steal shots. And we made a little short film called Brick and Mopsy, and I totally got the bug, and I was obsessed with being on the other side of the camera. And so then I went back to the drawing board and was like, what else can we create? And my husband's a writer, has always been, and we just started developing things together. Sometimes he'll write and bring me something, sometimes we'll create together, but it's a wonderful partnership, and now I just have all my eyes set on directing and being behind the camera.
I feel like I had no intention of being a filmmaker. I was always a performer, so actor, dancer, stunt woman. You could probably tell from the film. And I don't know, I just started to write stories. I always have written stories. My dad writes stories. We used to, like, for Christmas, exchange stories with each other. And I don't know if that's normal or not. But yeah, so it was something that was already in my body. I just never thought to utilize it in any way. And I think as I just started, performing a lot in the industry, there was things that I just wanted to be part of more and to see more of. And so I just started to write things that I wanted to be part of. And then this is what happened. So, yeah.
That's cool. Who are some of your heroes from either filmmaking world or just some of your heroes in general that you guys look up to?
I love Ridley Scott because he does some awesome sci-fi movies, and I love David Fincher. I think he's a genius with how he moves the camera. And I can think of Andrea Arnold's one of my. None of my movies are like hers, but she has this incredible way of working with non-actors and feeding the story that she shoots chronologically. It's a really interesting way of working, but her content's very powerful and moving. So there's a couple of my favorites. Yeah.
Did you shoot that chronologically?
Super not, yeah.
I mean, I think I mentioned before, I've been really influenced by Pamela Adlon's show, but I'm a member of the actor studio, and that's my background. So I'm really into Cassavetes, and I really like just kind of authentic, just gritty kind of grit, right? So just kind of, yeah. So that's, yeah. As much as we can improv, it's like I just want to be a fly on the wall and like you guys just be and interact, and I'll
Did you allow improvisation on your set?
We did, yeah. I mean, God,
the high five in bed, was that?
That was some improv, yeah.
That's awesome.
We shot the whole thing in 2 days, so we were very limited on time, but we definitely, it was crazy. But as much as we could, absolutely. And that's, I mean, even the whole baby scene was all obviously improvised, and just, we didn't feed him the lines, but no, just like, we were able to, work with the DP and say, like, for this amount of time, just roll the camera and let's just interact. And then obviously that's when the editor comes in and makes it a story. But we had all kinds of weird footage that didn't work, but it was like she was able to craft from the improvising, from just the being together, something that made sense, that I hope looked like we were falling in love, because that was the point, right? So I think, improvising is super fun for me. So any filmmakers that encourage that, I'm a big fan.
Foster, any heroes?
Well, I love the Coen brothers. I love sort of walking the line of comedy and drama and mixing it all up and surprising people. And I'll just say I also have some really wonderful women mentors. Valerie Weiss, who's a director who was lucky enough to shadow, and she went from her first feature for hire to television to cannot stop working in television. And Maggie Kiley, who's also like an actor first, changed, turned over into directing about 10 years ago, and then she's just like blowing up in TV. And so those women in my life have like really helped me and inspired me as well, because there's a lot of like, how do I forge this path, you know? And it's wonderful to have someone who's over there and going, okay, just do a little bit of that, you know, and wonderful sage advice. But if you can see it, you can be it, you know? So that's kind of what I'm trying.
I love books. So for me, a lot of it was Maya Angelou, Jodi Picoult. I love storytelling, whatever form it comes in, and so filmmaking is a fairly new vice for me. So they have been kind of my mentors, including my dad as well, and my brother, who doesn't know this, but he actually is a director and a producer, and he wanted to be a filmmaker far earlier than I ever wanted to. He was in his room studying, and we all thought he was lazy just watching movies, you know. I feel like through him and his excitement of it, I started to kind of grasp like, oh, that's what you're talking about. So So for me, it's the story first, and then I'm learning through the process of doing of what I actually gravitate towards. So
how do you guys stay inspired and stay fresh with things? And, you know, what fills your well with that? Like going to museums or going to see other films, or, you know, when you're at the end of the rope, how do you keep going? Because it had to take perseverance to produce these films, and just to stay in the business in general.
I do go to see movies, actually. I just got back from an awesome film festival, and there were movies that are super not commercial. Art house, indie movies, not the kinds of stuff that I'm interested necessarily in making. And it was really inspiring because they come at story from a different angle. And it completely was enriching, like, oh wow, I could do this with my sci-fi or that, and I can come at it from all these different ways. And that was a really good refresher, like a palate cleanser, that I wasn't watching all these sci-fis or action movies, but something completely separate. Or like watching Friends before bed. It's like, you know, just like a little something that kind of resets you and gives you new perspective. So that was helpful for me this past trip.
I find it sometimes really challenging to be inspired, and to go out and actively be proactive about getting inspired. I have a young child at home, and it just feels like there's no time ever to do anything. But what I can do, you know, when he goes to sleep, is I can put on a show. And so I've been watching, you know, some great shows, and I have been really inspired by some of the things that I'm watching. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't go to museums, like not right now. God, I wish I could. I go to children's museums, and that can be very inspiring in its own right. So I will be writing some Disney shows soon. No, but yeah, I mean, I think you find inspiration sometimes in daily things, conversations, you know, like this film is obviously inspired by my own personal experience, and, you know, your film is inspired by your own, you know, obviously your abilities, but also your, you know, what you find inspiring in a woman. And so I think sometimes just conversations, if you can just stay open to letting that inspire you, and but man.
Yeah, and like, well, I was gonna say, like, getting disconnected from devices, which is so hard to do, and just being really curious about people and their stories, and even if they just float into your life for 5 minutes, you know, I try to talk to everybody and just, you know, listen, because there's so much out there in terms of stories to be told and stories that aren't being told. And I also, when I'm filmmaking, it is such grueling work, and prepping is like, you know, 24/7 kind of. And so I try to take really healthy breaks in between, and like with my kids all the time, and that makes me crazy. And then go back to filmmaking, and then that makes me, you know, it's like bounce back and forth, and take some time off, because it's all or nothing is, it's painful. It's so rewarding.
I do agree. Balance is really, really important. There's so much that I actually, just hanging out with friends, first of all, and playing around. This next film that I actually have in post-production right now was literally developed from me doing a goofy dance in the middle of like my living room with my boyfriend, and, you know, like, and it just, there was a story there. And so that's kind of where our next film came from. And I don't know, there's so much good TV right now. So Handmaid's Tales, amazing. Elizabeth Moss is incredible, and just seeing what she's able to do as executive producer and also as the star of, and same thing with Catherine Reitman in Working Moms, like remarkable. So I think that for me is also watching other pieces of work and just seeing how that they do it. I mean, Catherine Reitman is also a showrunner and creator of the show and then the star of the show, and you're just like, how are you doing all this? And it's an insanely good show. So I think for me it's just kind of, watching things, playing with friends, hanging out, balance definitely of like work and then playing. So
I have a couple quick specific questions, and then we'll wrap it up with the last bit of advice you could give to the audience. Really quick, with the stunt situation, Marissa, how did you do the one where you like walked up on the dude, you bent over backwards, stabbed his ass that way? I mean, you're doing all that. That was real, right? Like you're
I mean, I am a stunt woman, and so those are things that we do. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the movie Logan, I was the double for X-23.
That's awesome.
So I have, and so I have.
This guy finally woke up in the front. He's like, X-Men!
So I mean, it was fun to be able to utilize, more of my skill sets than I would in other acting jobs. You don't quite get that opportunity. So
were you the stunt coordinator as well on the film?
No. So Shahab Rudbari, who's also the director of it, was also our coordinator for it. Who is also a stuntman as well. Many hats for this whole cast and crew. So, yeah.
And then the last specific question is for you. Tell me how you did the shot where it like time elapses, it's in her room, and it like things get on the wall, but the camera's moving. Could you just divulge that for me? I'm so interested, real quick.
Yeah, guys,
right?
That took a whole day of shooting.
Yeah, I bet.
So we rented a super cheap motion control rig. Oh, I always do that. And it's basically what that means is that there's a track with a camera on it. Oh, Brian's in the audience. The DP is here. He's going to tell me I'm saying this all wrong. But basically, it's been programmed to repeat the same motion over and over again. And what we did was, if you remember, it's a pullback coming out of the TV and it starts to turn. And then we actually connected that with a second shot that continues the turn and lands on Larson. So we did that pullback from the TV, I think over 70 times. And what it means is that you do one take and the room is basically empty, and then you do take two, and on take two you add a piece of furniture in, and then you turn the camera, and then on take three you move another piece. And what's the hardest part is that you can't actually see what the final product is going to look like, because you're kind of doing it in a vacuum. You're like, I hope this looks like there's enough things moving, or there's not too much moving, and you're not having a seizure while you're watching it. So it was a very interesting process. And then there's also, we rotoscoped in post-production. If you remember, there's like a bed that folds down, and like other like regular time, real time elements that are moving while other things are going hyperspeed. So that was all done in post. And we basically had the bed up for about half of the shots and then the bed down for the other half. And then we rotoed in one shot that movement. So it was a really cool process that was inspired by our DP, who brought a similar shot to our attention. That was all CG, so this was not. And we tried to do the real live version of it.
That's awesome. That was a great shot.
Thank you.
Give a round of applause. Okay, so it's actually really cool to meet all of you. I've seen these films, and so it's really nice to meet all of you. I'd love to end tonight with just a little bit of advice that you would have given to yourself if you could go back and talk to your 16-year-old self. Can you give yourself one piece of advice that we can end on here?
I can.
All right, you start.
I thought of it. It's just do it. There's never going to be a good time to make a short film. You're never going to have enough money or enough time or anything. You just got to do it a bunch of times and keep doing it. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be about filmmaking. We could be about anything. Oh. What would you tell your 16-year-old self? Anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it would be something along the lines of, you know what you love. You got to keep going. It's not always going to be pretty, but don't stop, because it's very rewarding. You're going to meet some amazing people, and you're going to question yourself sometimes, but just keep going. Just keep going. Yeah.
It reminds me really specific, okay? If you're trying to make short film, you don't know how to start, you don't have enough money or whatever, write to your location that you have. okay? So that you can write a really compelling scene, or that's a full story, 5 minutes in one location, you already have it, and you could do it for almost nothing.
Nice, exactly.
I think I needed that advice. Like, you know, I think follow your passion, love what you do, play with it, because I feel like I did not know I was going to be here. My path has been in this weird like world of playing around with storytelling, but in different ways. So yeah, just play and enjoy the process of it.
Well, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Sarah and Eileen and Foster Marissa, and thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, that was so fun.